Good morning, everybody. It's Wednesday, the 20th of January, and today we are continuing to write our independent first-person narratives. Your do now this morning is to make the necessary corrections to the text below. Just above, the inky clouds grumbled angrily until I dragged Laika into the ocean. It was time to leave. Pause the video here whilst you copy down the sentences and make the corrections, and press play once you're ready to continue with the rest of the lesson. Great job, everyone. Let's see how you did. So first of all, I changed the opener just above to overhead, and that's because just above doesn't really accurately describe where the clouds are in relation to you. Clouds are up a lot higher than just above. You might have rephrased it so they were far above, which is also fine, as long as you clarified the relationship between how far away the clouds were and where you were. I also changed the conjunction from until to whilst, because using until made it sound like the clouds stopped grumbling when I started to drag Laika, which would maybe suggest that dragging Laika into the sea caused that to happen, which obviously wasn't the case. So I've used whilst to just clarify that a little bit more. You may have changed it to as or a similar conjunction. I also had a misspelling of dragged. Dragged should have two G's in it because you double the consonant at the end of the drag when you're adding the suffix ed. Laika is also a proper noun, so needed a capital L. And then after ocean, I had a comma splice. We certainly don't want to see those in our writing. A comma splice is a type of run-on sentence. I expressed a full idea from overhead all the way through to ocean, and I had a main clause from the to ocean, so I needed a full stop. Because I used a full stop, I obviously needed a capital letter for it, and then a full stop at the end after leave. If you did miss any of those out, then please make some more corrections to your do now before continuing. But if you are ready, please continue watching the video whilst I give you an overview of what's to come. So in this paragraph, we want the weather to have either turned bad or to have cleared. That's a type of foreshadowing, and we can foreshadow danger, or we can foreshadow a happy ending if that's what you want for your characters in this narrative. We want Zoe or Zoe and Munchkin to have started their journey, so that can just be explained away in one sentence. We want them to have travelled for a while before they encounter the next part, and you could make this a difficult journey as well. Even if it's a difficult journey, you can still have a happy ending overall, and maybe just make sure that this is linked with the weather in some way, or if you do have a change in the weather again from clear to bad, that you do explain that. And a challenge for you, you don't have to have this, but feel free, that you might want their boat to capsize in a storm, and that would obviously affect how they encounter the new people. We want them to spot a new location, so we can have a new island like we had last week, or you may want them to see a large ship in the distance, and that might be quite interesting. It'd be quite different from what we did last week. And then we want them to get there, so we could have them deliberately travelling there. They saw the land or a ship and they decided to row towards it. Or if you wanted to have a storm, or they capsized, they could wash up there, and maybe they blacked out and they woke up at that point at the island or at the ship, and they could have opened their eyes and the next thing they saw was the sky or people surrounding them. But don't go past that point. It's really important that you do stop when they arrived. Try not to give too much away, because we'll be exploring what happens next obviously tomorrow as a stop there. Now for our key features, I have highlighted fronted adverbials, prepositions and conjunctions for cohesion, because that's what that was our WALT in last week's equivalent paragraph. You can see that there are lots of different small events that make up this paragraph, so it's really important that we can link them together accurately using those devices I've mentioned for cohesion, that all the ideas link and follow on and it's clear and coherent. We can use show not tell at various points, especially maybe when they see land or the ship. Are they excited? Are they shocked? Are they afraid? You can use that there. We want to use a range of complex sentences, so subordinate clauses and relative clauses work really well for that. We need to be mindful that even though we're using these complex sentence types, that we also make sure we are writing in the past tense consistently and in first person consistently too. And also be really careful if you have introduced a second character, Munchkin. I know some of you have given Munchkin a different name, which is fine, that you refer to them as we at appropriate points and I when you are talking maybe about Zoe's inner thoughts. Dialogue and appropriate punctuation if you want want to include it in this paragraph. I don't think I will be, but you may want to. Short sentences and deliberate repetition for emphasis and tension, especially if you're having them capsize or they wash up on shore, or they're about to black out because they've capsized and they're in the water, then that would work really well there. Rhetorical questions to engage the reader. Figurative language works beautifully well for describing the weather, so you might want to think about that near the start of your paragraph. And of course, unique phrases and vocabulary that you have drawn from your wider reading, really important to see. So on your home learning documents, you have another planning sheet like I've attached for the past couple of days. You may want to open that now before continuing with the rest of the lesson, because I'm going to show you different ideas that you can jot down for your plan, and then I will be share writing with you a model paragraph as well. So pause the video here if you need to get your materials ready, but if you are happy to continue with the lesson now, then please continue watching. Okay, so this is your planning sheet that you can download from your home learning page. Remember, this isn't the final activity. This is only to help you plan your paragraph. So this should only have notes on it, but what we expect to see on Seesaw is the final written paragraph. Remember, this is not your ultimate overall activity. This is just to help you with the ideas. So please make sure you are uploading your written paragraph at the end of a lesson onto Seesaw, please. So foreshadowed danger or a happy ending. Now, weather, as I mentioned last week, is a really great technique to use to give a clue to the reader about what's in store. So for your final paragraph that we'll do on Friday, you might want a happy resolution for Zoe and that she's found somewhere safe, maybe even people that she cares about. You can have her being in trouble again, or leave it on a cliffhanger, in which case you might want to use bad weather for negative foreshadowing, or if, as I said, it's the positive ending, you might want clear weather, nice weather. You may also want to foreshadow her being capsized later on, which would make sense, wouldn't it? Because if you've got a storm brewing here, it would also link in cohesively that there'd be a consequence for that later on. Of course, you can have it starting clear and then you can still capsize, but you need to describe that passage in between. So there's two things to think about. Now, you can't have both, so you need to you need to decide what you want. So you can have either negative foreshadowing, or you can have positive. So I'm just going to put my two headings on either side of my plan here, okay? So my negative, just draw a line under that just so it separates it in there as well. Now, have a little think now to yourself. What sort of weather would suggest negative foreshadowing? Pause the video while you think about that one. Okay, great. So I certainly think that's some sort of stormy weather. You can think about rain. You could think about wind. You could have a biting wind, for example. We spoke last week of rain that fell like daggers, storm brewing, angry clouds, grumbling, or something like that. You might have hail. I don't think snow would particularly work for a negative, but certain lightning, of course. And then think about what you'd see in the sky. So you could talk about the moon. Maybe it's a ghostly moon. Maybe some personification if the moon is staring down, for example. Or you could talk about the stars, but rather than glittering like diamonds, maybe it's like shattered glass or something like that. So you could talk about the stars, but you need to make sure that you're describing them in a dangerous or negative way. So the negative ideas that you could have, if you wanted to do positive foreshadowing, pause here and have a think. What would make it seem like a positive, something positive is about to happen? Okay, great. So I mentioned stars here that maybe, if we compared it to shattered glass, because that would be dangerous to touch and it suggests that the sky is dangerous, that something dangerous is going to happen. You might also talk about stars, but maybe in a beautiful way. So maybe they're twinkling like diamonds. That would be the contrast there. Maybe it seems like a dreamy sky. Maybe the sea is calm. You can talk, if this has been overnight, maybe it's sunrise, and you can talk about the colour of the sky changing to a beautiful rosy pink. You could talk about the sun if that's an appropriate time setting, if you haven't already mentioned that. And maybe there is a break in the weather. Maybe it was raining before and now it's stopped. So what I'd like you to do is decide what type of foreshadowing you want to use and make some notes about what you want to describe, maybe with some vocabulary that you can think of. So pause the video here and press play once you're ready to continue on. Okay, wonderful. So now we're looking at the beginning of our journey. So you might want to consider how some of these continue on when you're writing about your journey. But what we want to think about is starting to row. So starting to row. And because we want all of our ideas to link together, think about, do you want it to be that you're headed... Actually, I'm going to change the tense on this, started to row, and it's easier for me to remember to write in past tense. Maybe you're headed in a certain direction. You have a compass after all. Maybe you can talk about put the oars into the sea. You might also have a different idea of maybe Munchkin and Zoe maybe give each other a reassuring glance. They might even speak to each other. You can jot that in here as well. And then I think what would be nice, possibly, you don't have to, does Zoe look back? So Zoe looked back, or maybe she deliberately didn't. Look back at Eels Island. Okay, so you might have a couple of these. You might have put the oars into the sea. Maybe Munchkin who's sailing this time. I think it makes sense for Zoe to be though. Put the oars into the sea, and maybe she nodded at Munchkin, or she smiled at him, or she gave him a thumbs up or something like that. You could have that Zoe looked back one last time. Maybe she knew that she didn't want to even look at it and she just was sailing away. Maybe they knew that they had to head west, for example. You can make up the direction you want them to sail in. It doesn't really matter, but it's just giving a sense of purpose of where they're going. So pause the video here, make a note here of how you want them to begin their journey. Are they going to acknowledge each other or just start off? Okay, wonderful. So hopefully you've made some notes in this section. If you haven't, then pause the video here, but I'm going to continue on now. So the journey, and we spotted a new location. So I would refer to how long you've been rowing for, because you don't just want them to just stumble upon it. If you don't mention how long it was for, then it makes it sound like they started their journey and then they found somewhere instantly, and we don't want that to be the case. So I would make a note of how long and the opener that you want to use. So it might be for hours, and then remember your comma. I know this is a popular one. What felt like, and then you can, that would be after. After what felt like days or hours or years. There. You could have all night, comma, I rode and I rode, for example. And then you could also have I wonder what other openers you can think of. Pause the video here and jot down the opener that you'd like to use. You don't have to use one of these. You can use a different one if you want to. Okay, so for the next part, we can think about if you want them to have capsized, how does the weather change here? Is it good or bad weather? So this would be a separate point. If you want them to capsize, you have to plan it in now. So if they capsized, how did that happen? Was there a big wave? Maybe they hit rocks. Which damaged the boat. This is obviously optional, you don't have to have them capsizing. And then you want them to spot this new location. So they can spot a ship. That's a new idea we could have, and they go over to a supply ship or land. Okay. Right, pause the video here, make a couple of notes of what you want to happen here, your opener, and then what they spotted. And if you have them capsize, how did that happen? Okay, and then a final section to plan here is that they arrived at a new location, and you may want to give a positive or negative description to match your ending. It's up to you. So linking onto this, if they spotted a ship, maybe they got brought up by the crew. Maybe they lowered ladders or ropes or something like that. If they arrived at an island, maybe they landed on shore. And if you want this to have a positive ending, maybe this place looks really safe and really nice. Maybe they, and an idea here that if you were encountering trouble here and they got capsized, maybe they blacked out and woke up. So maybe they went unconscious. And woke up. On land or boat. And then you could have that maybe Leica was damaged if there was a storm. Okay, so what I just want you to do is just to make a note of what you want, basically how they arrived here, and then if you can think of some language that you want to generate for that, then jot that into. Pause the video here and then resume the video once you're ready to move on to how we could write this paragraph up. Right, so you should have your plan completed, and what we're going to do now, we're going to go through an example of what a paragraph could look like, and also ways you could change it as well. So really what you should be aware of today is that your ideas link cohesively together, and that you're not being too repetitive with your sentence types, and that things are logically slotting together and the ideas are linking. So our first section is we want to foreshadow some danger. But we also need to move the boat from the cave or the shed or from the beach into the water. So I'm going to acknowledge that Munchkin is still here because I don't want to forget that I've included him. So together, using that as an adverbial, we heaved. Because a boat is not going to be easy to move, so heaved, lugged, carried, pulled, and so on, hauled. We heaved Leica into, and I'm going to use the cool water. It's not icy because I don't want to make it sound too negative. Under, so my preposition. And I'm going to describe the stars, and I'm going to describe them in a positive way because I want some a positive outcome at the end of my story. So I want to have some positive foreshadowing here. So together we heaved Leica into the cool water under the soft, and I could use personification. I could have the soft gaze, the soft smile perhaps. I'm just going, it might have glow, the soft glow of the twinkling stars. Okay, and that's my red section done. So I've acknowledged, I've got a bit of positive foreshadowing here. You can add obviously a lot more if you want to do that. Okay, so our next part here, we've got our blue section, the beginning of the journey, and I gave you lots of points to think about if they just started to row, if Zoe looked back, if they looked between each other. I'm going to have Zoe just absolutely detested her time on Eels Island. She's not even going to look back at it, and she doesn't even want to acknowledge it anymore. It's done, it's over with. So I'm going to have another opener, so without even daring to look back. You could have something here, and then we need a comma, so it's without even one final glance, or you could have with one final glance, or as I firmly turned my back on Eels Island, I started to row. And then you can have a different conjunction at the beginning as well. Or because I wanted to escape as quickly as I could, I promptly plunged my oars into the water and sailed away. So try and think of those different subordinating conjunctions that you could use here, describing, does she look back, does she not, does she just start sailing forward? As I gave Munchkin a reassuring smile, I put the oars into the water. You get the idea. So think about a nice opener that could work there. And then I'm going to actually describe how I started to sail. So similar to last week, I plunged the oars. Now, would I say water again? Probably not. It would be too repetitive, wouldn't it? So what would be a good alternative here? I plunged the oars into the sea, and I'm going to add a little bit of flair to here and set off into the unknown once again. So I just tried to add a little bit of innovation here. And that's just 2 sentences so far. So I'm just going to read this back. Together we heaved Laika into the cool water under the soft glow of the twinkling stars. Without even daring to look back, I plunged the oars into the sea and set off into the unknown once again. Okay, I'm quite happy with that so far. It links together quite nicely. Just finish off some of my letters there. So my green section now, the journey, and then we spotted a new location. So I'm going to continue with having it being quite calm. You can have it change here, especially if you want your boat to capsize. I think that would make sense here. But I'm going to show an example of it being quite a pleasant journey. So I'm going to indicate how long time has passed. So I talked before about different openers you could have for hours, after what felt like hours, all night long, for instance. I might talk about how the sky, you can tell from the sky that time has changed. So you could talk about as the moon dropped into the ocean, you know, it's in like the moon looks like it's going down and the sun is rising. As the sun fought with the moon for the sky, as the sky turned into a rosy pink, like I said before. I'm going to have I'm going to describe the moon as silver, not ghostly, because I don't want it to sound like a negative description. And I'm going to link it with the theme. I'm going to have that the moon sailed, and obviously that's quite appropriate because we're writing about our characters in a boat. So sorry, what have I missed out with all my talking? I missed out the actual noun, haven't I? That's the silver moon. Sorry. As the silver moon sailed across the sky. So this is another subordinate clause here, so I need a comma once I've finished this bit. As the silver moon sailed across the sky, comma, I rode and I rode. So some deliberate repetition. to emphasise how much Zoe is rowing. And I think I said before I wasn't going to use speech, but I think I will, because what I want to happen is, because Zoe's back is to where she's heading, she can't really see behind her, but obviously Munchkin now can help her with that. So then I want Munchkin to point out that he can see something. Zoe will turn around and then she'll see what I've planned here too. So I'm going to have Munchkin say, just so that it gives a bit more importance to Munchkin's character as well, otherwise he's just kind of there for no reason, isn't he? So look, I'm going to put an exclamation mark there instead and use capital letter. Look over there. Look over there, exclaimed Munchkin. And I'm going to give him a bit of action as well, because if you did see something when you're in a boat and you're in the middle of nowhere, you'd probably point, wouldn't you? So look over there, exclaimed Munchkin, as he pointed behind me. So Zoe can't see it, that's why she's not noticed it. Look, over there, exclaimed Munchkin as he pointed behind me. And then I want them to see a ship. I want it to make it quite different from last week. And I could get very descriptive with this. I could have some show not tell to show Zoe's reaction. She's going to be feeling really surprised, isn't she? I would think, or maybe relieved. And then you could have some rhetorical questions to show the thoughts that are going through Zoe's mind there. And then we want to describe how she actually headed towards it. So I think I might have some show not tell. I wonder how we can show that she feels surprised. She's obviously not expecting to see a huge supply ship. So I wonder what we could use here. Okay, good. So I'm going to say I craned my neck. I don't want to say I looked behind me, because I've already used behind me right here. So I craned my neck, and this was one of our reading words, wasn't it? Craned. I craned my neck, and I'm going to have my jaw dropped. My jaw. And my jaw dropped, full stop. And I'm going to say what it was. It was a huge supply ship. I wonder if you can remember where in the book a supply ship was mentioned, and I wonder if you can figure out what's going to happen, because I've said this. Though it was a huge supply ship, and then I'm going to have that. Again, maybe feeling determined. She knows that she wants to head over to it. So I clenched my jaw, or maybe, or just like I pushed us ahead. So I knew we had to reach it, for example. So just some acknowledgement of how she's feeling about that and what she wants to do. I knew we had to reach it. So I pushed the boat ahead. Is my remaining strength. Will that fit on? I think it will just about there. Okay, good. That's my green section. Looks like I've written quite a bit, but I have got speech, which is taking up a big chunk of space here. Whoops, I've just realised that you can't quite see that bottom bit there. So I'm just going to move this down ever so slightly. So what I want to happen now is for them to actually get on the ship. So it would make sense for Zoe to maybe shout up and say, please help us. And then the transition of them being in the sea on Laika, and then on the boat. I don't want them to lose Laika either, so I'm going to actually have the whole boat hauled up. I'm not sure how realistic that is, but it's my story. I'm going to go with that one. I think it would be a shame for Laika to be left behind in the sea at this point. So I think I want... I don't think I will use speech, because I'm going to try and fit on what I can here. So in a moment, we pulled up alongside the vessel. So using different nouns here, I don't want to keep repeating ship. The moment we pulled up alongside the vessel, I'm going to have thick ropes. I'm going to be really naughty here, and I'm going to write in this gap because I really don't want to have to turn over the page, and I'd rather have the whole paragraph on one so you can see. So I wouldn't recommend this, but just so you can see the whole thing. So the moment we pulled up alongside the vessel, thick ropes were lowered down to us. So again, using prepositions, even just using down, just helps the ideas link together. Thick ropes were lowered down to us. And maybe a relative clause which we tied to Lyca. The moment we pulled up alongside the vessel, thick ropes were lowered down to us, which we tied to Lyca. Actually, I think we'll stop here. We were soon, maybe an adverb here, slowly, quickly, gradually. We were soon hoisted up on the ship. Okay, being a bit naughty at the bottom, but hopefully you won't be too cross with me. So this is my paragraph. So I've got my steps. There are 4 steps in this one, so it's just a little bit longer. It looks longer than it is just because of this speech here, the way that that's been spaced out. So together we heaved Lyca into the cool water under the soft glow of the twinkling stars. Without even daring to look back, I plunged the oars into the sea and set off into the unknown once again. As the silver moon sailed across the sky, I rowed and I rowed. "Look, over there!" exclaimed Munchkin as he pointed behind me. I craned my neck and my jaw dropped. It was a huge supply ship. I knew we had to reach it, so I pushed the boat ahead with my remaining strength. The moment we pulled up alongside the vessel, thick ropes were lowered down to us, which we tied to Lyca. We were soon hoisted up on the ship. On the ship. Maybe on board, up on board. I think, just because I don't want to keep repeating the same nouns again and again. There are a couple of other ways you can innovate this. So for this green section, you can really add a lot more detail here. So you could have, I craned my neck and my jaw dropped. How could it be? So rhetorical question here, like almost so astounded that this ship has appeared out of nowhere. As if out of nowhere, a supply ship, and then you could have a relative clause, which I felt like I'd seen in a dream, appeared on the horizon. And then you could have I clenched my jaw and I propelled the ship towards the boat. Now, there is another example of how you could change this paragraph. So I've got one typed here. I didn't want to write 2 of them by hand because I would be keeping you here all day. So this one, I'll just talk you through of how you can have it be more of a negative and a capsized example. So the red bit could be quite similar. I've not written the red bit again, but the blue bit, we rode safely for a while, but it was too good to be true. So we started off with a nice clear setting, and then we've got the contrast. Soon, biting winds raged round us, and we were tossed helplessly on the furious waves. So we've really got a sudden, it was calm, and then it flips, okay? Look, over there, Munchkin shouted through the bitter rain as he pointed behind me. So similar idea again. I craned my neck and my jaw dropped. How could it be? A huge supply ship emerged through the ghostly mist. So you can see how adding in a couple of extra details really change the style of it. It was our lifeline. I gritted my teeth and propelled the boat forward with all my remaining strength. It was our only chance of survival. I glanced up at Munchkin and saw that he had turned white. So again, some show not tell here, the contrast in styles. Zoe is feeling a bit more confident. Obviously, Munchkin's feeling quite terrified. "Wave!" was the last thing I heard him say before everything turned black. So this is when they've had a huge wave crash towards them. Obviously, that's flipped over the boat. And then I slowly opened my eyes and the dreamy pink sky came into focus. Where was I? So rhetorical questions have been used in both of them for different effects. This quite different from the one I've written with you, but I just wanted to share that as well. So again, just refer back to your plan, what ideas you jotted down, and then follow that, and then just really keep reading it back to yourself, check that you're happy with all your ideas and how they link together, okay? Right, really looking forward to reading this one on Seesaw. Take care, everybody, and I'll be with you all in the morning to carry on with our narrative. Okay then, bye-bye.